Hey, how you guys doing today? I'm starting a half hour later today. I'm out of town. We're doing radon. And if you don't know about radon, this will be a pretty good video. I'm in a hotel room. I'm doing one of my trips. And so I haven't covered radon. So we'll do that today. I'll also provide a link to the YouTube video when I get back in town. So if you need to watch the radon video again, you'll be able to. So let's just start. In America today, the number one leading cause of lung cancer, we all know, is smoking. And the second leading cause of lung cancer in America today is radon gas. So people, that die from lung cancer don't necessarily have to smoke or get secondhand smoke or have asbestosis. Asbestos causes a lot of cancer, but radon beats it. And, we live up here in the Cleveland area, and you've got a 50-50 chance of having radon. And, the east side has radon, the west side has radon, high radon in the far west, like Vermilion, and that whole area there's got extraordinarily high amounts of radon. And then we go down south, tons of radon. And, you really don't know if you have radon unless you test. And I'll give you a couple ways of testing it, and I'll even tell you some free ways to test it. Just hang on for a little bit, and I'll tell you a couple ways of doing it where you could save money. And, of course, if you'd like to hire somebody. But radon, you don't know you have it unless you test for it. And like I said, it does kill you. It can kill you, and it is the second leading cause of lung cancer in America today. Now, just for the heck of it, since most of my people watching tonight are from Ohio, you can get these from any of your states. So for the rest of the people in other states, you can look this up, call up the radon department or the health department, and they'll turn you on to a map. And certain maps will show you where you have higher radon and also what types of soil you have. So, depending on the bedrock, what type of bedrock you have, and how high up it is and what is the water table. The higher the water table, the more the bedrock. And then I'm going to show you what in homes causes high radon, where you could have radon and your neighbor can't. And there's even ways of correcting that, without mitigation systems. We'll talk about that. So let's talk about the different types of radon machines. These are typical, they're called Honeywell machines. Most inspectors like these. I happen to have 6 of these or 7 of these. And they're nice because they actually will, they're small, and usually in Ohio, you have to test. It used to be 48 hours. It's 72. If you are in a real estate transaction, then it needs to be 72 hours. And the reason for the 72 hours, this sounds kind of crazy, but the home inspector opens windows. And when he opens the windows, they're like, okay, you're out the house, so you're kind of killing the first 12 hours. So now they want to add 12 hours. So you're talking 72 hours minimum for home inspector real estate transactions. So when these guys do 48 hours, guess what? They're not doing it right. So I know I shouldn't be, saying this and giving out a couple secrets here, but it's 72 hours. Now this machine here is kind of nice. It'll actually print out a tape and it'll tell you every hour, what is happening. And you could tell, if somebody moved the radon, it'll tell you it's tilted, or, if a cat jumped on or if the power went out, it'll come back on. It'll just tell you power out or tilt. That was one way of testing it. That's called electronic testing. These are canisters. Now, these canisters, generally in Ohio, you got to do 2 of those, and they got to be within 4 inches apart. And it's called activated charcoal. Hello, everybody. How you guys doing? Hey, thanks for coming on. I'm going to give you some tips here coming up real soon, how to minimize radon coming into your home. And I did mention that radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in America. So you want to place these 2 cans, and you take an average. And there's a couple companies in Cleveland that do the charcoal, and I do them too once in a while. This is another what's called a continuous monitor. Now, this is the kind of monitor some home inspectors use. It's a little bit more expensive for the inspector because they have to rent these things. And basically, the inspectors like these because the company Radon does all their work for them. So they're going to be the same price, and it does almost the same thing as the Honeywell, and they're continuous monitors. Then this is called a Femco, And same kind of thing. These are really expensive, and there's only a couple guys in Cleveland that actually use these. And these guys will measure. Some of these will also measure temperature in the home and pressure, and sometimes they could tell if somebody opened a window. Now let's think about this. When you test radon in a home, first of all, the windows have to be closed 12 hours before doing the inspection, and that's why inspectors have to add 12 hours from the initial 48-hour test of 72. So assuming the windows are closed, you do the test. You got to do the test in the lowest livable area. The lowest livable area, and basically the lowest livable area can be a basement that can be turned into a bedroom, a lower room, but not a crawl space, okay? Not an attic. So you want the lowest livable area. That's where you want to test it. And again, you want to do it for 72 hours. This is another test. These are the kind of tests you could probably buy at Home Depot. Now, Home Depot tests basically these are different types, and these are accepted in Ohio as well. I'm going to guess $20 to $40 range. So if you want to do your own radon test, save some money, run over to Home Depot, get one of these kits. Make sure you read it. It'll tell you where to place it, how to open it, write down the time, just fill out the forms right. It's kind of just like setting it down. And you want to set it down. I'm going to say 30, like 28 to 38, I believe, but I usually like to go 30 inches to 34 inches, kind of like a seat. A chair is good. A table is fine. Even a high bar is good to go. But you don't want to put it on a shelf. You want to keep it about 3 feet away from every wall. You don't want to put it next to a sub pump because the moisture can mess it up. And you just don't want to put it near a sub pump. You don't want to put it near any fan that's on. Another thing is when you're doing a radon test, let's say you're doing your own. I know I'm trying to sell radon for myself, but a lot of people don't want to spend. I charge $165, okay? Maybe you don't want to spend that, so you want to do it yourself. And you don't want to waste your time either. So when you do the radon test, do the right amount of time, put it at the right height, and put it in the right place. And don't, 3 feet from any wall. You don't want to be near a sub pump. You don't want to be near an exhaust fan. By the way, when you're doing these tests, you don't want to have exhaust fans. And another really, really important thing is you can't open doors and you can't open windows. If you open windows, the radon test is kind of worthless. If you open doors, it's worthless. Now, you are allowed to leave, like in and out, normal entry, it's fine. If you're using a bathroom, normal bathroom use, it's fine. But you don't want to have exhaust fans. Now, those attic fans up in the attic that do the heat removal, those are okay because that's not the same living space, okay? And so you can use normal entry. Now, you don't want to do a radon test if you're moving out or if the carpet guys are showing up, or if the door's going to be opened a lot, like a garage sale or a estate sale. This is one more last one. I used to do these a while ago, maybe 25 years ago. These are called e-perms, and these are kind of cool. And nobody's really doing this up in our area, but that's another form of testing. And that's something that a radon guy would do. Now, I do some multiple housing testing. That's where you will go out and place, 100 radon tests. So, there's a special way of doing that. And these things I just kind of hang. So these are radon tests. They're charcoal, and you buy boxes of them. And most home inspectors are not going to use these on your homes. This is for high-rise buildings, multiple units, and government type, government establishments, Section 8, things like that. I don't get a lot of these, and of course we discount it when we're doing 100 radon tests. So when you're doing the test, let's say, you probably don't need to do this as a homeowner, but a home inspector is going to have to put a couple signs up. Radon test in progress. All exterior doors and windows need to be closed. Hey, Jody. Hey, Jim. Hey, Bill. How you guys doing tonight? Hey, thanks for coming on. If you guys missed it, I don't think I made a comment, but I did say you can do the radon for free in some states. And that was in Ohio. You could call this. I'm not sure they're still doing it. You might want to call them, but they were doing it for free for almost a decade, where you would call the health department, ask for the radon department, and then ask them where to get a free radon test, and they would. I think the University of Toledo was doing it, and then the only deal is you have to send it back to them because they want your results. Now, what's really cool is the University in Ohio, and I'm sure every other state has this. You have to find this, a little bit of homework, but you can actually find in your zip code in Ohio, it'll tell you what the radon levels are in your zip code. Now, that's great, but that doesn't mean you have that, because I'm going to tell you in a few minutes why that doesn't always work. Okay, so you want to keep your test, you want to put up signs. So, when I do it, I usually put a sign, at the radon test, I put a sign on the door. Some inspectors will tape windows and put like window tape on so people don't open windows. And then they'll sometimes use different types of equipment that'll measure the pressures in the home to see if they turned on fans, if the power went out, the pressures. Now, a lot of, I'm sorry for the little teeny picture here, but most of the time when you use continuous monitor, when you hire somebody like me or any home inspector, they'll give you a printout. And then this printout here will tell you every hour when it was high. The only problem with these printouts, and these are continuous, the computer test, is that people look at those and like, oh my God, we got 5.5. And by the way, let me talk about these numbers. In the United States, the EPA limit is 4 picocures per liter. So anything above 4 picocures per liter, they kind of want you to mitigate or, to diminish that level. And anything under 4, they say it's safe. But let's say your average is a 3.8. Well, wait a minute. And then last night it was up to 5.7, for 3 hours, and it went down to a 2. You're like, oh, what about at night? Well, bottom line, in my book, if you're close to 4, then you might want to do long-term testing. You could look that up, but that could be like 2 months, 6 months, a longer period. And, frankly, by the time you spend, all the time testing it, you could just put a system in. Most systems are in Cleveland, if it's a simple one. And I'll show you simple and hard houses in about a minute here. But you're talking anywhere from $700 to $1,500. So it's not like going to break you, Hey, Jim. Hey, Mike. How you guys doing tonight? Hey, thanks for coming on. We're doing radon. I did make a comment that radon earlier is the second leading cause of lung cancer. We talked about different forms of testing and how houses are all different. And so these particular tests will give you a printout. Whereas those cans you saw, those round cans earlier, those are charcoal activated. You're only going to get an average for the whole time. So those won't give you an hour-to-hour blow. So these are the guys like me when I do lots of them, and we have computer printouts and we get a little bit more fancy, and like I said, you could place these on tables, on bars, on chairs. That's getting that chair there is kind of pushing it a little bit. We're getting a little bit low on the low end there. Now, some people like to hang them. Now, if you see a radon test next to a water heater or on top of a water heater, very bad. Very bad. That's probably going to be, I'm going to say a low level. If you see a radon test on the floor, nah, very bad. If you see a radon test next to a sub pump, nah, very bad. And so I would say closer to the center of the rooms where a bed may be. Now, if a basement isn't finished like this one, you see that test there, that's probably okay. It's the center of the basement, and I'm thinking maybe, they might put a wall up. And if they put a wall up, then that's going to be a bedroom or a pool room. And so the signs are very important. And another thing is, this is kind of crazy, but I actually had a cord. As you see that cord hanging there, you got to be careful with pets. And if you're going to do the test, if your pet's not used to something new, then you're going to have to do something like put the cord in the ceiling and put boxes around it. Because I've actually had a cat chew the electrical cord. And what was really funny was my client told me, don't put that down or you can't do that. The cat's going to chew your cord. I'm like, yeah, right. The cat's going to chew my electrical. I don't think so. I go, I'll don't worry about it. It'll be fine. She called me back no more than 8 hours and said, hey, I told you, man, the cat chewed your cord up. And I went down there, sure enough, the cat chewed that cord and wasn't electrocuted, which is kind of funny. It would have been funny if it was. No, it wouldn't have been funny. But so you want to make sure if you got pets, be very careful. If you have children, the minute you put these things up or you have visitors, the kids are going to press these buttons. So, if they press the buttons, they could ruin your test. And so you want to be careful with the kids. Sometimes you do 2 and get an average, like I do 2 every 10 inspections. And if you look at this one, now here's one where the radon is extremely high, 37.2. And you know what's funny? This is completely funny. I was teaching a class in the east side of Cleveland near Mentor at a real estate office. I had 40 people in there, and I used to teach classes to real estate agents, go around and do continuing ed. So this is one of my continuing ed classes. And we're talking about it. We said, yeah, we set the machines up. We put them in the back. You know, if you guys want to press the button, you could see what it is, the average since the class has been going on. And as somebody pushed the button and they go, Marco, it says 37.2 and 36. I'm like, no, you mean 3.7 or 3.6. And she goes, no, it's 37. And sure enough, it was. So they had offices. All the offices were getting hit with 40 picocures per liter. Remember I told you anything over 4 is bad. That's a lot, 4 to 40. And the real estate broker never invited us back to his office again. And he was pissed off, totally pissed off because we told him about this radon. It was a complete accident. Where does radon come from? Well, it comes from the ground in bedrock. So naturally, now if you're looking at this building here, I actually tested this building for radon. This used to be this Ohio building, and this is the society, and of course that's our terminal tower. Well, we tested every floor of this building, every other floor, for radon, and we didn't really find high levels because the radon could be in the granite. So you could be in an office tower and you could be exposed to radon, believe it or not. So I don't know. I mean, some of you people that working on high-rise buildings with granite granite facades and curtain walls, you might want to test that stuff. You just might want to test that stuff. That is the building that was the BP building, Ohio building, and I don't know what they're calling it now, but we tested that for radon. Hey, Christina, how you doing? Now, this is kind of crazy. You guys with your little fancy kitchens and your granite countertops, well, you know what? Granite can have radon. Now, that was, I did that test like 20 years, 15 years ago. That's not how you really test for granite. But, there were no protocols on how to test granite countertops. There are now. I don't get a whole lot of calls for it, but think about it. If your granite countertop's emitting radon or radiation for that fact, I mean, it is stone, it did come out of the ground, you might want to think about it. Now, I'm going to say that you've got a higher chance of radon in your home than you do in your kitchen on your granite countertop, okay? So radon coming from the ground. Now, this stuff here, this blue stuff, this shale, a lot of places that have shale or bedrock have a higher chance of radon because radon actually comes from uranium. And uranium has a really long half-life. I mean, we're talking, thousands of years, okay? And it breaks down into a half-life. But here's the thing. When it does break down, it also causes radium. Now, radium has a half-life. Actually, when radium breaks down, it breaks down to several different sisters or daughters, I think they call it. And one of them is called radon. So radon actually comes from radium, which comes from uranium. Radon, what we're talking about, the second leading cause of lung cancer in America, has a half-life of 3.7 days. And that's when it disintegrates. So as you're breathing the radon, because it's an alpha particle. Now, beta particles kind of go through you, but the alpha, man, you breathe that stuff, it gets in your lungs. That's the problem. Alpha particles are large, but when you ingest them and breathe them in, and then when that disintegrates on at 3.8 days, boom, it damages your lungs. So they're alpha particles, and every 3.8 days, and that's why it's important to do the test properly too, because of its half-life. It's a short half-life. In the ground, foundations have it. Like this foundation here, we tested it lots of radon, because you can see the bedrock and the gray shale, okay? And this granite countertop had really crazy blue stuff in it, and it had radon. So shale has it, bedrock has it. This foundation, at this point, you're going to build a house and you hit this kind of foundation, you might seriously consider putting in a passive radon system. And a passive radon system basically is you put an interior gutter system in, like those interior waterproofing systems, and you put a passive system and you connect it like a radon system, just don't put a fan on it. This way, if you ever needed to put the radon fan on it, you could easily attach it. So foundations, it comes out of the ground, comes out of the soil. Now this house here might not be so bad because they've added a lot of stone. And what they do is that stone's kind of like a buffer zone. And that's why if you drill a hole in your concrete slab and you suck your concrete, that pipe you put in the slab, it's going to suck this stone and it's going to suck the radon. It's called a radon mitigation system. And sometimes, if the stone leaks to the outside, whatever, you may have lesser chance of radon because of this buffer zone. Shale, again, we talked about it. Now, no one thinks about this. If you have a sub pump and you've got negative pressure, and I'm going to show you in a minute how a lot of people have this problem with their home. If you positively pressurize your basement, guess what? Radon's gone. It should be gone, even though you have radon underneath your home. You can maybe not have it if you have positive pressure. If you have negative pressure, you suck your basement. Now look at this. If there's a pipe in a sub pump, well, where do you think that pipe's going? Underground. And that pipe's around your house. That pump's, it's a drain tile system. It's a storm line. A lot of times it's got penetrations, for water again, right? Well, if your basement sucks, and I'm going to show you in a minute how your basement can suck, it's going to suck radon out. You're going to have high radon. So a lot of radon comes from sub pumps, okay? Cracks. If your basement sucks again, and if your cold air returns aren't sealed, and in other words, your furnace has two types of the blow and the hot air, and then you got the other part that sucks back down the furnace. That's your cold air return. The real problem is when those ducts are in the basement, if it's sucking and they're not sealed, then what happens is that it causes negative pressure and sucks your basement. Then guess what happens? You start sucking radon out of that crack in your foundation, okay? So you could get radon from cracks and foundations, okay? If you have a heating system with ductwork that's cracked, and most of these older systems, especially the house on the west side, a lot of slab houses, the Schmidt homes, and a lot of these systems aren't sealed. The new under slab HVAC supply ducts are sealed, and kind of airtight. These aren't, and these are cracked, by the way, the clay tile ones. And so you can have radon in there. So when they tell you, "Oh, I live in a slab house, I don't need to test for radon." Well, you know what? Wrong. Now a lot of older homes in Cleveland have what's called the Cleveland drop, and that kind of means that the cold air returns were never connected. Back then, we had the coal systems. Well, you got to connect your cold air returns. Now, this is a really screwed up situation. This is a two family with two of these things. Here, these guys communicate and steal heat from each other. But in other homes, if these aren't connected and you close that door to the basement, you've got major negative pressure. So you want to make sure your cold air returns are connected to your furnace. You want to make sure they're sealed in the basement, and the door that goes to the basement, you might want to keep it open, cut the bottom of the door, put a hole in the door, or change it to a louver door, because that's going to equalize the pressure. That's what I call plan B. So you want your basement to blow. And another thing you do to make your basement blow a little bit is open a heat register to give it positive pressure. So let's think about this. If our house's basement is blowing air because we sealed our cold air returns, and it's not sucking air, well, how are you going to suck in radon? You can't. You can't have radon if you have positive pressure. So that's one way to correct radon. It's kind of difficult because now you're relying on an HVAC system. There's a door, and you put your hand there, and you can use a piece of toilet paper, turn on your furnace, and if that toilet paper is getting stuck in your basement, your basement sucks. And you're also going to suck moisture out of your sump pump. You're going to suck odors out of the ground, and you're going to suck radon, and that's a problem. So you don't want your basement to suck. Now, when you have a sub pump, this is how you want your sub pump lid to look. And hey, Paul, how you doing? Hey, Paris. Hey, Mike. Thanks for coming on. We're talking about radon gas, the second leading cause of lung cancer in America. And we talked earlier about the different ways of testing. We talked about how to properly test, and we talked about results, and we talked about what to look for in homes to lower it. Now, this sub pump here, you want your sub pump covers sealed. Now, you could do this. This works really nice. And hello, Paris. And it works nice. And, you don't have to use this. You could use plexiglass covers. You don't have to buy these. Now, there are radon covers you could buy. They're, by about $180 installed. This, I believe, is a radon cover. And it's a sub pump cover that they open up and then they seal it. And it's got a little piece of plexiglass you can look inside. So if you're going to have a sub pump, make sure it's sealed 100%. If it's a very active sub pump, make sure you got your little battery backup, right? In case the power goes out. And then if you could look in there, it'd be kind of cool too, So if you can have a plexiglass to see what you have going on. So here's one that's a plexiglass one. And one that's plastic, and they're all sealed. When those little penetrations are caulked and sealed, then you're sucking radon out of your basement. Now here's one that's made out of plexiglass, and you can see they drill the holes, and you could put slots in, whatever you want to do. Okay, this one's kind of strong. You could walk over it, but you don't want any communication. Okay. Now here's a radon system. We talked about passive systems. So this one here, basically, all they did, they got lucky. They just put a pipe in the ground. They sealed it, and that was it. Okay. Now we'll show you a little bit later how they hook up fans. Now this system here is a dual system. Now, unfortunately, if you have a basement and a crawl space, well, guess what? It's going to cost you a little bit more money because now you got to put in 2 holes. And these guys got to drill these holes in the floor, put the pipes in, connect them, and then you got to hook fans up to these things. So, if you got a basement with 3 sub pumps, well, and let's say 1 sub pump and 3 crawl spaces. Well, you might have to put 3 systems in. And sometimes if you got a big basement with a lot of crawl spaces and you don't get the proper suction, you might have to put a couple systems in. Okay. And this is a crawl space. So, even though we're not living in the crawl space, let's say we find out that we have radon in the home, the upper home, or in the basement. Well, when we're mitigating it to get rid of it, by the way, I don't mitigate. Okay. There's about 4 guys in town that mitigate. I like to use a company called Radon Survey Systems. I've been using them for 30 years. Dr. Garamani and his son Ari kind of runs a company. They've been in business for a really long time. And that's why I used to get, I refer them out for my radon. I personally do my own radon testing. If I can't do the radon testing, then I pretty much refer it out to any of the Inspectors 5000 group members. Most of them do the radon test, and they're all certified radon people. And the basements have cracks. So we talked earlier, the walls have cracks, so the basements. When you're doing a radon system, you need to seal the cracks in the basement. Now, we're talking about the radon pumps. These things last. When you have high radon in your home, you put these pumps in. Now, if you want to know if the neighborhood has it, you could just drive in the neighborhood, look at the backyards, and you're going to see these pipes that go up. Now, this was completely wrong. If you notice, the pipe is a gutter. Do you see the gutter here? You can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to do that, and I'll show you why. That's supposed to be a pipe. So this is a wrong installation. And you'll see these in the backyards. And if they have them in the backyards, you can bet your life that you have radon or live in a radon area. That's another pipe. That's just signs that we put up. And by the way, the reason I have this picture is you could get these. It's a home buyer's guide to radon, and you could get this for free. Yes, Paris, you can. If you have a sub pump in the basement and there's already a pump there, you can actually hook up a radon machine to it as long as it will depressurize the basement. A lot of radon mitigation companies will connect the radon machines to existing sub pumps in basements. A lot of times they have to put new ones in. All right. So I don't know if I answered your question. This is me doing a high-rise building, and I put signs on doors to let people know, and so we talked about these sub pumps. And let's get going here. Okay, so now, sorry, some slides somehow went out of order, but this radon pump has to be put in a non-conditioned space. You can't put this radon pump in the house. It has to be, this is an attic, which is a non-conditioned, or on the outside or in a garage. So these will never be in your home. They can't be in your home. So they put these in your basement, it's done wrong. Like this one here. There's no way this is right. And this is a homemade one. This guy's like, hey, I'm going to do my own radon system, I'm going to make my own box. Seriously, it costs some more money to make this thing, and it's not even correct. So homemade systems don't work. You could buy this stuff. The fans, by the way, last between 4 and 8 years. And when you get those replaced, they're about $300. Okay? And so, there isn't a small expense. So you got a new house, you got an old house, you want to test it. Now, if your radon system, and that's a pipe going up to the roof, it usually just goes above the gutter. When you see this system, sometimes these systems will ice up. That means it leaks. That means that they do a really good job gluing it. You want to make sure they're glued. This one here is that gutter system. They started these in Ohio because a lot of these people wanted to be fancy. Hey, I don't want this pipe hanging out next to my house, it doesn't have the good curb appeal. People are crazy today, Curb appeal, really? The pipe, seriously? So they put gutters up. You can't do that anymore, okay? And you can see that black on that gutter. That means it leaks, okay? So these aren't really accepted by the state of Ohio anymore. Now, another thing these guys do, these guys are going to put a system in your house. Half the time they got to cut your wood. So you got to talk to them. Say, hey, listen, are you going to cut my wood? Where are you going to cut it? Are you going to cut in the middle of the beam? So make sure they tell you ahead of time where they're going to be drilling big holes, especially in your structural timbers. Now, this one probably is okay. It was near a beam, no big deal, all right? But sometimes, they put these holes and they could cause your piano to deflect, and it could cause cracks to occur in your upper walls. They can cause doors to get tight. So, ask them ahead of time what they're going to cut. Now, the way it's working and it's not working, they put one of these meters in, and basically this just measures that it's sucking air. So there's usually a 1/2 to 1 inch column difference. You can see how there's like lower and higher. That means it's working. When they're level, it's not working, okay? And that means it's off or the power's off, etc. When you go outside looking for these things, it's usually about 2 feet above your roof line. Okay, it has to be above your roof line, 2 feet, like that one. And sometimes they put caps on them. But here again, let me guess. You guys know what's wrong with this one? Yeah, I knew it. Yep, you guessed it. It's the gutter, and you can't use those. That one's correct. That one's working. Now, sometimes they ice up. And here you actually have, this is actually the furnace that's icing up, which is kind of normal. But maybe they should have had a properly sloped, and they should have had some type of condensation trap so this doesn't happen. But this one's leaking too here. You can see how this pump's leaking water here on the bottom. So that wasn't properly sealed. So you don't want to see ice on them. And now this one's too low. That doesn't meet code. That's got to be above the roof. So there's a couple things. That one's no good. That's got to go above the other roof. 2 feet above the roof is pretty much the code. Okay. And here's some more big holes. You really should be doing that. So if you guys need a radon test, and you're doing a home inspection, you can call me, okay, 216-431-TEST. That's an old number. It works. Don't leave texts on that one. But my real number is, this is an old boat picture, is 216-924-TEST. Which is 216-924-8378. And you could call me if you want to do a radon test. So let's recoup a little bit here. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in America. Radon is all over, and you don't know if you don't test for it. Radon testing short term should be minimum 72 hours. And if you go long term, it could be several months. There are many forms of radon testing where you could hire people, or you can do it yourself. And if you do hire somebody, we talked about, hey, it should be 3 feet away from walls. They shouldn't be near sub pumps. They shouldn't be on top of water heaters. They should be at the lowest livable area, not in crawl spaces, okay, and not on floors. And we also talked about what is the levels that we are concerned with. In Ohio, in America, the EPA says anything above 4 picocures per liter. Now, if you're in Sweden, it's 2 picocures per liter, and if you're in Canada, it's 20. So that's a whole other video why it's 20 in Canada. But so I'm going to end the video here. We did talk about radon today. I will try to make this available on a YouTube video when I get back in town. You can call me anytime you want if you have questions on radon. And also, if you think you can get it done for free, call the Department of Health and ask them for a radon test. You'll be able to do it for free, or you can go to Home Depot and get your own kit. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week at same time, 8:30. And next week we're going to do a doozy. I got a really good show for next week. You guys are going to love it. Thank you for watching. Take care and good night.